Now, once again, Raymond Arroyo.
Welcome back to The World Over Live. An ISIS video showing the brutal burning of a Jordanian pilot has aroused anger in the Arab world against the terror group. What effect will it have on U.S. policy in the region and the fight against ISIS? Meanwhile, here in the U.S., President Obama's comments at this week's National Prayer Breakfast comparing Islamic terror to Christian history has also aroused some outrage. Joining me to discuss all of it is an advisor to the Anti-Terrorism Caucus in the U.S. House of Representatives and World Over contributor, Dr. Walid Pharez, on set. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And via satellite, Bill Donohue, the president of the Catholic League, joins us from New York. Bill, glad you're aboard.
Thank you for having me.
Walid, I want to start with you. Is this a game changer in the region in that we saw a Muslim man being burned in this horrific way? This is the first time, it seems, that the Islamic and Arab world is really inflamed over this.
It is a game changer in the sense that now the Jordanian public, the Jordanian government have shifted
Abdullah?
from quasi-neutrality to complete engagement. They know that ISIS will strike at them, not just at their military. There are 1,800 Jordanians serving in ISIS in Syria and in Iraq, and many hundreds inside Jordan. But the good news is that behind Jordan, you're going to see an alignment of the UAE, despite the little incident, the Saudis, more important, the Egyptians and others. We have a formation of Arab moderate bloc. What we need to know more about is the policy of Washington.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is what I want to double back on. One thing. There is this outrage in the region over one pilot, so he's a fellow combatant, if you will, who was captured and then killed in this brutal way. The UN report this week, coming out of Iraq, that ISIS is beheading, torturing, raping, crucifying babies, children. Why isn't the world inflamed and excised over this? Why did it take the burning of one pilot in this case to do it? ISIS has been spilling blood for months.
Absolutely. If the UN says so, if the UN confirms so, what we're dealing with here at this point in time is a genocidal jihad. No more distinction between military and civilians, small kids, adults, any religion.
Bill Donohue, I want to play something for you. Today, in this context, President Obama spoke at length at the National Prayer Breakfast here in Washington about this Islamic terror group, ISIS. He called them barbaric. He said how horrific their actions are. Then he said this. I want your reaction.
And lest we get on our high horse and think this is unique to some other place, remember that during the Crusades and the Inquisition, people committed terrible deeds in the name of Christ.
Bill Donohue, is that a legitimate comparison, comparing ISIS to the Crusades and the Inquisition?
No, if you take the Crusades, first of all, they were defensive war against Muslim barbarians. Let's get that straight in the first place here. Had it not been for the invasions, the Christians wouldn't have reacted the way they did. And by the way, people like Thomas Madden at St. Louis University, who's a scholar of this period, has examined this stuff pretty carefully, and it was his conclusion that all of the wars met the just war criteria. Now, you're always going to have some extremists. We understand that. But I think that's a pretty bad comparison. I also think bringing in the Inquisition, the Catholic Church had almost nothing to do with it. Both of these are part of the black legends after the Protestant Reformation trying to smear the Catholic Church. It was the secular authorities who were protecting the king and his idea that he got his rights from God who were going out there burning the heretics.
Right.
And it was a whopping 1,394 people who were burned at the stake by the secular authorities, according to Henry Kamen, who's the world's authority on this. Now, look, we can go down the line on this thing between the Crusades and the Inquisition, but the fact of the matter is, as you rightly pointed out, you've got Muslims out there killing in the name of their God. It's not an anomaly. It is a popular interpretation. I didn't say it was the only or the most legitimate, but it's a popular interpretation of Islam, and it's all over the Middle East and Northern Africa, to take a machete to a kid's head and to burn people alive, and to do what they did this week in Syria, to take a homosexual man, bring him up on a roof, blindfold him, throw him down from the roof. A mob then descends upon him to see if he's still alive. The poor devil is still alive. What do? They finish him with stones. That's not the Crusades. That's not the Inquisition. Obama needs to apologize to Christians.
Waleed Phares, what does this do by setting this ISIS terror in this frame that, well, it's the everybody does it defense? Does that diminish what we're seeing unfold before our eyes today, not in the medieval times, but now?
Actually, this is going to help ISIS. This is going to help the jihadists because that's exactly their narrative. They're saying we are a response to the Crusades. The Crusades were like NATO today. They were the international relations alliance, Atlantic alliance of the time. If you want to compare the Crusades, not talk about the excesses during the Crusade times like any other excess, you would compare them to the Caliphate, conquering Syria and Mesopotamia and Lebanon and conquering North Africa. But real estate to real estate, the Crusades conquered the size of Alabama and the Caliphate conquered 3 continents.
Yeah, and it was a defensive war. I mean, the fact is...
It was a geopolitical war between 2 empires at the end of the day, and defensive in the case of the Crusades.
I want to talk for a moment about something you raised. Abdullah has been talking so tough as a result of this poor pilot being burned in his country. He's committed to some airstrikes. We've seen those in the last few days. Does he have a military with capable might to repel ISIS, or does it demand an American involvement?
Repel is the key word. Thank you for using it. He can defend Jordan. The ISIS is going to attack Jordan from the outside and the inside. He is going to demonstrate deterrence. He's going to invite other Arabs. What he needs is an American support. He needs Washington to lead, and not lead from behind, but lead actually the campaign. And Washington will be backed by many Arab moderates if they do.
Bill Donohue, the president made another comment, and I've gotten so many emails about this today, people who are watching it live, some people in the room at the Hilton today. I want to play this little bite for you. It's about faith, and I'd like you to comment on what you're hearing here. Roll that.
I believe that the starting point of faith is some doubt. Not being so full of yourself and so confident that you are right and that God speaks only to us and doesn't speak to others. That God only cares about us and doesn't care about others. That somehow we alone are in possession of the truth.
We need a faith that admits doubt. He worries about a faith that doesn't admit doubt. Does that concern you, Bill Donohue, in the sense that we are facing an enemy in ISIS that is animated? Even if it be a perverse version of a religion, Islam, it is still a religion, a religious imperative here driving this action. To not look at it with that lens, aren't you missing something crucial?
You know what I find interesting about this? I mean, he's right to the extent that there are dogmatists, the fundamentalist Christians and people of other religions who would act in that kind of arrogant way of saying that I have no doubts whatsoever, never did, and I'm right and you're wrong. But they are on the margin. They're not the norm. And yet one of the norms, certainly a strain within Islam today, are these radical Islamists. And yet he won't cast them as extremists. I mean, you know, it's so amazing the way he flips this in history. I have my doubts about him, let me tell you that.
How did I guess that, Bill Donohue? Waleed Phares, I want you to react. Are we missing something when we don't consider a religious perspective on this violence and these wars that we see percolating and exploding throughout the Middle East?
Let me visit one angle of what President Obama has mentioned. If indeed we need to have doubt, and I may agree with him, but it's a two-way street here. Anybody who criticizes the other religion, remember Muslim dissidents, non-Muslims, when they criticize Islam or the principles of Islam, fundamentalist or mainstream, what are they called? Islamophobe. So President Obama also must criticize the accusation of Islamophobia if everybody has doubts.
I want to come full circle here. There is some suggestion that for this to be a positive campaign, for ISIS to truly be repelled, the American position right now is Sunni Muslims have to join this fight. Is that the answer? Is that what the Obama administration is waiting for?
I wish it was, because if we had a plan, as many members of Congress, Senate, and House are saying, then yes, everybody should be on board for it. Beginning with the U.S. administration, with the moderates among the Sunnis, we can find moderates among the Shia and others, and let's not forget the Christian minorities and Christians of the Middle East, they should be part of this as well.
Bill Donahue, before we go, at the turn of this new year, the top of 2015, you mentioned something on our show. You said that what you saw for the year ahead was a slew of new legislation that would try to enshrine a right to die in the United States. This week you sent out a press release. Looks like you might have been right.
Yeah, California, New York, Colorado, and Maryland. And my favorite place to watch is Colorado, not only because they legalized marijuana. You know, Marlboro we can't have. Marijuana, that's different. No, never hear anything about secondhand marijuana smoke? No, only Marlboro. But let me tell you, why I'm watching Colorado is because they're going to have a do-it-yourself thing at home. In other words, the doctor's going to write a prescription, you pick it up at CVS and you head home and then you inject yourself and you're finished. Okay? It's my idea of a new idea of a takeout order. I mean, this is really sick. The handicapped, the disabled, that's where it always goes. Not sometimes. There are no built-in safeguards that are impregnable. History teaches us that once you go down the line, you start with the hard cases, it's not a slippery slope, it's a sheet of ice. People ought to wake up.
Okay, we will continue to watch this legislation as it moves through some of these state houses. Waleed, I'm going to give you the last word. Where do you see this going? We see now Jordan is engaged. The Arab Emirates seem to be a little wobbly here. They seem to be walking away. In fact, we learned just today they walked away from the anti-ISIS effort in December. We're just getting word today.
It's true, the UAE, other countries are basically asking the administration, how serious are you? Are you going to put people or boots on the ground, not even in Syria and Iraq, but at least in the...
On the outlying borders.
On the outline. If you are serious, we will be serious. We are much smaller than you are. Second, they are concerned also about the other ISIS, the Iranian Hezbollah, and the other players in the region. So we need a real change in Washington. Then we could ask every ally in the region to be in line in this battle.
Waleed Phares, Bill Donahue, thank you both for being here. Thank you.